am live. I can't even remember. Oh, yeah, no, it shows me in the corner. We're in Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. It's been a little while since I've been on here on live, and I didn't set a specific time because I had quite a few things to do today. And I was like, I'm not sure whether I'll go live, but I need to kind of make more of a habit on it. And lunchtime is always generally a good time because I'm fed, generally trained, and got everything done that I needed to do. But yes, so it definitely got colder. And routine has been something that's been like super on my mind. I talk about it like a lot. Um, but I've been thinking about it a little bit more since, of course, the start of school. We've not long moved, and because, of course, we moved 3 times in 18 months after the flood, routine is something that is kind of forefront in my mind with um, just the autistic experience and the need for routine and things like that. That's something that I've had to establish and shift and move each time we've moved, and it generally can tend to change and shift as changes come anyway. But also lately, as many of you know that follow me on social media like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, is that I have started doing ice baths. So I've got one in my garden, and I've moved to Portsoy in Aberdeenshire. So I was like, okay, it's a quite a I'm gonna say like maybe not like big culture, but it's like, it's quite popular. Sea swimming, duking, co-steering, surfing, paddle boarding, just lots of stuff in the coastal rowing, things that are in the sea and stuff. So I've been looking forward to getting involved in that. But the funny thing is, so like with having, so I've got a new Recover ice bath, and it's brilliant, but at the same time, it tends to be as cold as sort of the environment, if you like. When you've got the ones that are solid, and you put ice in them, sometimes like the ice will stay, especially if it's like metal. But it meant that over the weekend when it was quite warm, and last week when it was quite warm, the water was sitting at about 16 degrees, which, I don't know, I guess is cold. It's still getting in cold water, but it's not super take your breath away cold, or not. It's not for me anyway, because I've been doing ice water baths and showers for, I don't know, more than a year, maybe not quite 2 years, a long time. And it's like a daily thing, so I'm used to it, I'm adapted to it. But why that falls in with routine right now is as the weather starts to turn, so like I'm wearing a super super cozy fleece today, because in the house today, like it's sitting at like something like 16 and a half degrees. I'm like, surely not, and it's quite a drop from last week. So in terms of doing something like cold water immersion, this is kind of that pivotal point of keeping the routine in, and the habit of getting into it before the temperature takes a drop, and the water temperature takes a drop as well, and getting in becomes that little bit harder. And it's not so much so if you're acclimatized to it and you're doing it and you're going with the times. So that's one way that I've been thinking about routine. But naturally, as I'm changing the structure of my business a little bit, and looking at the ways that I can integrate everything that I've learned about fitness and nutrition over the years, but also as I'm leaning into the anti pathologization, and at the same time still honoring sort of like the autistic experience and things like that, and traumatic experience as well. It's looking at the ways that I approach things differently, and have to get quite creative with it, and how I manage to do that. So it's been sort of forefront in my mind as I've been doing some planning and putting together of some things, and why the way that I approach things works so well, and because it's had to, as I say, um Ruby and I were flooded out of our flat in December 2021. So all of a sudden, right before Christmas, we're essentially deemed homeless. They weren't going to rehome us, and I had to think on my feet. All of a sudden, I knew that I had to be able to maintain Ruby's routine as much as I possibly could to give her some sort of sense of normality while we were completely uprooted. Um, we ended up in the tent flat for uh, just under a year, and that was only after we had to, in that first couple of days we had to stay in a hotel, and then we one of my amazing friends let us stay with her uh, for a week until we then got our temporary flat, and then of course we moved again um, to the flat in Aberdeen, but it was on a main road. And with being autistic and hypersensitive to sound, like living right on a main road was nothing short of hell. I mean, I personally slept in the hallway for 6 months. So I bought a mattress specifically to sleep in the hallway. And then we moved again in late June of this year, and that's it. The good thing to take from it is that I've got really adept at having what I call a floating routine, and being able to establish a routine whenever we move or change place has been something that I can implement a little bit quicker. Each time it's got a little bit easier to understand what is the essentials, what needs to be done first. Because I'm, as a parent of an autistic child, I'm prioritizing making sure I can get Ruby's in line, but at the same time I have to, in terms of putting your own oxygen mask first, this is where looking at how I look after my body, how I soothe my nervous system, how I create that sense of safety as someone that has had, the experience with complex PTSD, as well as, being unrecognized autistic for like my entire life. How important it is to make sure that I take care of the things that help me take care of me to be able to take care of Ruby, and yeah, so where was I going with that? Yeah. So like quite a lot of the times I would be asked questions by people. They'd be like, because I used to talk about being autistic and ADHD, and people would ask, how do you manage that need for routine and that impulsivity? Because I think that's something where I think it's really important, where that anti-pathology sort of stuff comes in. It's looking at, needs and preferences and desires as things that are personal and not creating limitations or fixations of limitations, if that makes sense, and instead asking the question, what do I need here, and how can I make this work, how can I make this happen? And this is where I think fitness, nutrition, and nervous system soothing techniques and habits are so powerful, because it's taking care of these things from the inside out, calming yourself, creating that stable base and that sense of safety and certainty from inside, and creating that power from the inside as well. So I mean, for me, I have set routines for things, but they're changeable and movable. And quite a lot of the time I call it a floating routine or a floating structure. That's how I tend to describe it. Because what it reminds me of, being someone that, spent most of their life in around Aberdeen, grew up in Aberdeen and around Aberdeen and stuff like that, is like an oil rig. Or if you expand out into the likes of, somewhere like New Zealand, or other countries, I guess, China and stuff like that, where they have to build their buildings, they're to be mindful of the likelihood of earthquakes and things like that. You can't not have the structures, you can't not have the buildings, but you have to build them in such a way that in the likelihood of something like an earthquake happening, that there's as little damage or danger as possible. And that's kind of how I think of it, is you're creating a structure and you're creating a routine that allows you a sense of certainty, a sense of control and understanding, and just, being able to know what's coming, but having it in such a way that it moves with life, it moves with the challenges that are inevitable. It doesn't matter whether things are going really well or going terribly. Like, things are ever changing. The only thing we can ever be certain of is change. So this is how I tend to work with it. So I sort of said my impulsivity was things like travel. We'll go somewhere and travel, like just a change. Sometimes I need like an environmental change or something. So that was one way that I would maybe um build in impulsivity. But in my day-to-day routine, so like with work and just my lifestyle, my fitness and everything like that, I have a set amount of things that are done daily, but there's also things that can be mixed and matched and pulled out. And I use this quite a lot of the time in personal training as well. So I started working in the fitness industry in 2008, and I've had lots of different, roles within the fitness industry, from, fitness instructor and class instruction up to personal training. But I also used to contribute to magazines and write courses and things like that. And I represented Fitness First UK as a national PT ambassador, and all of the things that I tend to do with people, or something that I really enjoyed doing with clients, was something called, well, it was essentially habit stacking. So similar to, like looking at the book by, is it James Clear, Atomic Habits. It instead of having these huge lists of things to do and applications of overhaul or changing everything, it was having everything, so you just had little. So I called them snacking on workouts. Was something that I did quite a lot. So where people were reluctant to exercise, or didn't know where to start or what to do, or maybe weren't sure about whether they had enough energy but felt like they should do something. But sometimes it can be, especially with neurodivergence and the interoception sort of stuff, where you're not, the signals aren't always crystal clear, and you're like, oh, sometimes you might need to hazard a guess, and sometimes that means trying and seeing. So this is where snacking on workouts is quite good, where you start with a fundamental of warming up and seeing what happens when you're doing the warm up. How does it feel in the body? Does it make you feel more energized, or is that the point where you're like, oh, actually I am tired? And then from there, deciding where to go. So that's one example. But I can't remember when it was. It was a few months ago, but I was experiencing, after move to, experiencing some burnout, and I remember being insanely grateful for the fact that I had developed a load of different skills and routines and things that allowed me, even when I was burned out, or just didn't really have much energy, to still be able to have a certain level of routine, or do the things that are quite hard to make yourself do, like breath work, or gentle movement, or eating things that are supportive of the body, when you don't have the energy. Like, when you're feeling lethargic, or a bit, depressed, or just not in your fullest energy, it can be harder to make the choices that are going to be supportive of your body. And I've developed these skills over, decades. So I'd wrote this course, Nourishment, and the whole premise of it was using those high energy and high motivation days to create, to enjoy the stuff that you're doing, but also to create things and structures and plans for when you have those low energy or low motivation days. Because I think what happens quite a lot of the time when we tell ourselves, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I don't have enough willpower for this, these are all things that end up draining energy and confidence, where, it's hurtful and it takes a lot of energy. So by having something where that what to do on days where you don't have that much energy, or how to get what you need with less action, built on the things where you have the motivation and you have the energy, is something that is massive. So that's basically what I mean about having routines that move and floating structures, is nailing the basics, knowing what you need, and sort of bringing awareness to that and just mapping it out, popping it down. Um, because otherwise we end up getting stuck in this cycle where we're going, I need to change everything. I need to do everything, which creates that overwhelm that stops you from taking any action. And I know this because this tends to be, something that I experience in other areas of my life. So from teaching, and last week I did a workshop on weight loss, looking behind the bullshit, and I was looking at the things that I was teaching through that, and all of it's looking at having more compassion towards yourself, and recognizing what you need rather than jumping to criticize, and telling yourself, oh, you need to do more, or all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, so where do I need to apply this in my own life? But yeah, so this was just sitting on my mind, and I thought it was something really important to share, even though I've maybe not been super crystal clear about how about what I mean or anything like that. But it's just routine. The main takeaway of the point is that routine, if it becomes something that is limiting, if it becomes something that it becomes overwhelming in itself, this is where it is really, really beneficial to bring awareness to what routine looks like for you, and how it can be shifted, changed, and made more malleable, to shift with your energy and the amount of spoons that you have at any one time, and how you can get the support if you need it as well, to help kind of keep these things in place. So for me, when I'm having times where things are harder, and I'm like, oh, it's so hard to maintain the routine or do the things that I know are going to make me feel good, this is when I'm reaching out for help. And this is when I'm telling my friends, like, I'm finding things really difficult right now. And just voicing that makes it easier for me to feel like I can do more of the things. But yeah, I use journaling in particular for this as well. So on the lower energy and higher energy days, getting into the habit of writing down what you have achieved in a day. And one thing, so even if it's just like getting up, is, that's enough. So I think getting into that habit can be really, really beneficial, bringing awareness to kind of what every day looks like, and celebrating the things that you are doing, and noticing where you're tempted to criticize your efforts, criticize your choices, criticize your behaviors. These are signposts to where you will benefit from exploring, what does that mean, and what do I need? What do I need at this time? What will make this easier? What support do I need to get this done? Is this absolutely essential, or is this something that I am trying to gain external validation? Is this something where I feel like I need to do this to be accepted, that kind of thing? And these have all been really, really helpful for me in this last, well, oh, it's all, I mean, it's coming up for 2 years in December, so it's not far off. These are things that have been absolutely essential to getting through 3 moves, quite traumatic moves, as a single parent and a neurodivergent person. In that time has been shifting, recognizing the things that I absolutely need in every single day, things that help but aren't essential, and things that are absolutely non-essential and can be picked up later. Um, so yeah, I hope this is helpful. If you want more um, examples, I guess, of what is and what isn't essential, I am actually developing a membership library of all the different things that I sort of do in terms of building routine and drawing up self-awareness and understanding how to create these structures and lifestyle things and small changes that just make everyday life more enjoyable and improve your energy. And yeah, so I mean, it's not ready yet, but it's on the way. And in the meantime, I do have my Gumroad, which I'll put the link in the comments, and there is the nourishment workshop in there. And you can sign up for my newsletter, my email there as well. So yeah. Well, anyway, after speaking at the beginning about going for cold water, I'm not getting in the ice bath today. Um, not because I'm breaking the habit, but because I'm going down to the harbour to do a duke there with a group of ladies for the first time in Port Soy. So that is awesome. Already done my workout, but that's also partially why I've got this super warm fleece on, because I think it's gonna be cold, but it's gonna be fun. So we're still on the way to a full month, which will be on Saturday. Full month of cold water. But anyway, have a good day, and I will see you soon.